And I wanted to have this little talk today. We're going to shift gears back a little bit and go back talking about cybersecurity and IT related topics. I think I've established that I'm a controversial figure here, and I may share opinions from time to time that may not always be shared by everyone. However, it's very important that when I advise or suggest something, that you take it in consideration with a whole host of other opinions, because generally when I consult with a client, that's what I am doing, is giving my professional opinion based on 20 years of experience in the field and industry. Now, what I'm going to talk about today, unpopular opinion, is that, for one, penetration testing is not really necessarily the best spend of your money when you may have other things in your existing environment that you should probably remediate before you go spending money on having somebody tell you that you didn't patch your servers and that your network equipment's 5 years old and that you don't have the best firewall and you're not paying subscriptions for your UTM and etc. etc. For me and for my company, the way that we address IT and security as a whole is as an onion. And the first layer of the onion is really the dirt, the physical layer of the network, physical access to the network, physical control of the network, having security cameras, having log monitoring, having intrusion prevention and detection systems, having a robust IP address management system, having physical layer access control on your network. All these things are super important in the cybersecurity stack. Now, today, the trend is that companies will hire penetration testers to come in and look at the network. And I think that sometimes that people put a value on this that is maybe not an appropriate value. And the reason why I say that is because in a penetration test, we're going to look at a number of different ways that your network might be vulnerable, right? So I think we should consider all the ways that your network is vulnerable when we're going to do an assessment like this. But there are so many times in a data breach situation that the low-lying fruit is the cause of the data breach. Poor education of employees would be one of the number one things that I'd put on the list, is not having people that use strong passwords and that they don't understand, well, I can't just give our banking account routing information to just anybody on the internet randomly. So we can buy, the vendors can come in and they can sell us very fancy, elaborate systems, which they will manage for a fee for you, and they will keep track of your network, which those are also important considerations in network security. But that creates also vulnerability, because as we concentrate what we've got into one system, that becomes another attack surface, okay? And so on that topic, a lot of things are on the cloud. Today, most things function on the cloud. And I am not of the opinion that, well, we shouldn't have the cloud. But what I'm explaining to you is that there are a number of companies, very large, very sophisticated companies, that have went down this road. And now they are learning that there are vulnerabilities within this cloud architecture. And if you're not considering all the vulnerabilities or all the possible vulnerabilities of your system, it's not really going to be secure, because the best firewall in the world can still be compromised by the person that walks in there and can physically get into that room where that firewall is located at. Maybe it's software-based firewall, okay? We have adversaries that are highly technical and highly educated in these particular things, and there's known vulnerabilities in them. When you're going to attack a network and you're going to go after somebody, you're going to look at what is the easiest place where I can get in, okay? And if you have unpatched and not secure equipment, that's going to be the easiest way to get in. Your D-Link switch is not providing adequate level network security. And I'm very sorry that no matter what solution you really buy, if you're deploying things like unmanaged switches in your network, you're creating a security vulnerability. And companies really don't, not every company, but a lot of companies don't have the budget, or they don't have the appetite to go out and actually spend that kind of money to get the equipment that they need to build the secure network. Now, some of my clients and all companies do have secure networks. I'm not saying that they don't. What I am saying is that those networks were built on a foundation of level security that starts at the ground level, okay? So there is an entire stack, obviously, of things that's worth considering when we talk about network security. But if I can walk in the front door of your business and I can get right to the server room and I don't have to face any obstacles, that is going to be a problem, okay? And so all somebody has to do is say, I'm here, my name's Travis, I'm with Frontier, I have a work order, I need to get to your server room, can you please take me to where your router's at? And they're going to walk you right there. I mean, honestly, I am not kidding you. Only one company that I know of ever asks for a password. And this is probably the best advice I could give you on this particular subject. You don't have to buy something to fix this problem. Tell your employees, if somebody wants to get into this locked server room, which we monitor with video cameras and everything else, they have to have a password. And if they don't have that password, they don't come in the room. And that password is issued only by the IT department. This should be a policy that you should have. That should be the ground basis thing for anybody that has a physical presence in the world. And that's what I mainly deal with, is companies that are in the manufacturing sector that are building products, or maybe they're in the retail industry. There are large companies. And what do I do but emulate what large companies do that's been successful for them, which has kept them out of the headlines of papers. And some of those things are implementing sometimes difficult to start policies and procedures, and establishing controls where, I'm sorry, Alice is not going to always be able to send all the documents that Alice has been used to sending. And these types of decisions, large companies are making these decisions. And so the tide is definitely turning, where they have realized that this is something that they have to do. But the other side of this coin is IT departments. I don't think I've ever worked in any IT department that was overstaffed, had abundance of budget, had a ton of free time on their hands, and had nothing else to do besides implement best-in-class network technology solutions. Their hair was on fire, the building was constantly burning down, and people were always coming to them with a number of priorities that they didn't know exactly how they were going to deal with, okay? And those number of priorities can range from somebody needs their password reset, which should be automated at this point, but to I don't know how to operate email. Okay, and it is going to be a challenge for us in the industry to deal with users, but it is our obligation to provide an education to those users. And the basis of security is an education. So back to the topic of penetration testing. It's my firm belief almost every network is going to fail a significantly well-conducted penetration test, because I've never really encountered many places outside of the military that have the kind of controls that I'm explaining to, except for, I'm going to name drop here, TJ Maxx, okay? Let this sink in for you guys in the enterprise world, that TJ Maxx, the discount clothing place that's got literally stuff just not even on shelves, just laying in the aisles, has got their IT so together that you can't get in without a password, okay? And you got to show documentation, paperwork. Out of 1,000 work orders that I've done, maybe we've shown our paperwork a dozen times, okay? So this is why I say that penetration testing should be a lower priority maybe than some of these other things. I also believe that a resilient enterprise, a company that has got built strong controls within their environment, is going to be able to prevent 99% of the types of vulnerabilities that you'd be worried about by presenting this basically wall in your business, when somebody wants to compromise your network and they want to actually get in, they start poking it, okay? They're going to use vulnerability scans. They know all the tips and all the ways to do this because they have been learning how to do this their whole life. They may have been sponsored by state government. They may have been brought into this because they were designing the actual hardware that you're running in your business, because we don't build this hardware in this country. So we face adversaries that literally know how to write the firmware on the exact networking equipment that we're trying to secure. So our adversaries are many, and it's a diverse subset of people. And we really need to fully understand everything about our infrastructure systems if we're going to prevent the type of stuff that gets people on the front page. Now, what is the stuff that ends up with getting people on the front page? Generally speaking, it's low-level stuff. Passwords, things that are not properly secured, things that a penetration tester has a particular role. And what their role is not necessarily going to be to find those particular things. They're going to scan for known vulnerabilities, and I think that's very important that we look at those. But I think, honestly, in a lot of departments I've worked at, I knew what the vulnerabilities were. The vulnerabilities were somebody walking in and physically plugging in. So I think that in the age of the cloud, there is a benefit in analyzing what also data is leaving the premises. And so that's kind of the other aspect of this little talk I wanted to have, which is I'm not absolutely all in on that cloud, because when that data leaves our physical control and it goes across the internet and it goes on to somebody else's servers, that's what the cloud is. It's not a magical place in the heavens where all your data lives in this perfect system that just works every time. The cloud is other people's computers. And when you use other people's computers, it's also important that you understand what that computer is, where it's physically located, what kind of laws and data controls are applicable to that particular data set. Because let's say your company is trying to save money. Do you know that your data could be sent to potentially Australia, for example, where certain laws that the United States may have to follow, they don't have to necessarily follow the same laws once that data goes to that overseas data center. And so I think that other people's computers have a point in our world, but I think that exposes us to a whole new vulnerability that if you're on the cloud, certain prominent voices in the cybersecurity industry have said and believe that the cloud connected being hacked, okay? And the systems that I know, the most secure systems, the customers that I work with that have the best and most robust data security on the face of the planet, I can't tell you what happens there, but I can tell you that they're not getting hacked. They're not connected to the internet. They're not following the protocol where they have some managed service provider that installs some little software on their computer and calls home, and then you can remote into it. Those places require a badged person to physically go into with a maybe file on a USB drive that's clean, and transferring something onto a server that you've vetted and you've made sure that it's legit and you got signatures for and everything like that. Not every environment is going to be like that, but I'm not saying you have to be like that, but we should learn from highly secure environments about how to build resilient data systems for our own selves, even if you're the little mom and pop, because if you have people's data and they have access to it, I think it's important that you keep it secure. And this kind of goes into another kind of the end of this talk today, which is that I really think that companies should be obligated to report when they have a breach, so that everybody else in the community can learn the lessons from that breach, okay, so that we can make sure that it doesn't happen again, okay? But a lot of times I've seen this, almost everything I've ever been involved in, the breach is not public information. It's not even information that they let the employees know. And oftentimes it's their data that's been breached. And so your employer is not going to want that information to get disseminated, but that limits the actual response that we can have for those types of an incident, because if we don't know what's happening, we have a problem. Ransomware is rampant, and I'm sure there's a ton of companies that are willing to sell you solutions there, but you can build an immutable storage solution where you don't have to worry about, let's say somebody steals my data. Hopefully there's not a lot of damaging information in there. We need to live in an environment where we are going to have data that's going to be exposed on the internet, and we have to be okay with some level of exposure of that data, and we have to be able to live with when we get breached. Equifax, all these credit monitoring places are a great example of exactly what I'm saying. Your social security number really should not matter anymore at this point. You should be able to write it on the side of a bus, because once we take away the importance of that particular piece of information, it doesn't matter if somebody steals it anymore. We can secure our credit reports by doing very basic things like freezing your credit report, okay? Just put a freeze on all your credit reports, and then only you can unlock it when you need to have somebody pull your credit report. Basic free solution that nobody's making any money on. But this is kind of what I work on with my clients, is developing comprehensive solutions to problems based on these principles. Not because I get money from selling some software as a service to you guys. And I do think that there is a role for these things, and I definitely like them. But there's also no substitution for hardcore old school logging and analysis of that logging to see what's going on in your environment. Because another sophisticated threat actor is going to want to be in your environment and want to hide in your environment for a prolonged period of time. Penetration tester is not really hanging out in your network. They're looking for a hole that they can pop through, and they can get in and they can get out, and they can put that on a piece of paper. That's their job. Their job is not to create a sustained level of access into an environment over months where they can glean data about how you function as a company and do malicious things with it. I personally think these are much bigger threats to data and security than a lot of the other things that you might be worried about. I've worked with my clients to have secure solutions for their problems for 20 years. It is very possible for us to build systems that don't get hacked, but the companies need to have the budget to be able to afford the technology. That's the one thing. It's going to cost money because it physically requires you to buy hardware. It costs money to buy hardware, and that money that you spend on penetration testing is very important because it's going to show you where you need to put money. But if the money is not there, the test is also not going to have any value. So if a person ever asks me if they should do this, yes, if you have the budget to remediate the problems that you uncover. But I think you could do a penetration test by just asking the IT department, how would you hack into this network if you were trying to get in? And they'd probably give you a list of all the things that they know that are going on right now at that place that probably shouldn't be happening. So, just to provoke some thought, I want you guys to come into the comments on this post, and I want you to tell me what you think. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, I want you to tell me that I am wrong. Okay? I am begging for open dissent here. I want everybody to have a voice at this particular table, because if we are advising our clients improperly, then I will change my business practices. But I'm willing to bet that you will see, and I will be able to find experts that will reassure you that what I'm saying to you is true. Nothing that I've said is based on just some theory that I've got in my head. It's based on sound logic and reasoning based on a long time in the industry. And I serve a particular industry, and so it's also important to consider that there are other industries out there, that there are other contexts that we should consider. But I have dealt with very sophisticated threat actors, but I don't have clients that have had a data breach. So that is our current record. And I hope that I never am on any of those lists, but simple steps, things that don't have a lot of glamour and don't sell a lot of product, are the way to secure your network, okay? And those require an investment in your people. First and foremost, before you spend money on a penetration test, give your people that have worked there for 10 years or 20 years a raise first, okay? That is a good way to prevent a penetration, okay? Another way is, like I said, basic education, all right? So, in summary, there are amazing penetration testing companies out there, and I will give you links to them, and I will recommend them, and I think you should use them if you have the money to do what you need to do. But it's going to be expensive. So buckle up, and if you want a secure network, make sure that you check out my Discord, because I'm starting my own Discord. The link will be in the comments. Make sure you join me there. I'm going to be sharing more exclusive content that I'm not going to share on here, because to be honest with you, the amount of information that I'm going to start sharing about how we operate with our clients and how we advise is going to start being severely limited, because this is our competitive advantage over everyone else in the industry right now. Okay, guys, so take it what it is. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know